to my cutest little champions. I welcome you all to score 99% in 99 days. Today we are going to deal, oh my god, my hair. Okay, today we are going to deal with the chapter that is how do organisms reproduce, and we are going to complete the conceptual part of it by dealing with sexual reproduction both in plants as well as human beings. And I see one thing that have deeply make me very sad, and that is you are not making full utilization of the videos that we are putting down for you. We are making conceptual videos regarding a chapter. We are giving you PYQ questions, okay, in separate video. We are giving you revision videos so that it will be easy for you to revise within an hour or so, okay, or else you might take a lot of time, right? And then we are also providing you mock tests on Sunday, but still you are not utilizing it, and that's kind of really sad. Please children, your exams are coming, which is why we are doing a lot for you. Utilize these efforts that we are putting just for you. Okay, chalo. Now, no more talks. Let's get into the content. So over here, we completed asexual mode of reproduction, both in simple organisms and in the case of plants. If you are someone who have missed the class, please not worry. Go watch the previous video. Okay, you will get all of it. Now, today we are going to talk about sexual reproduction in the case of plants and in the case of animals, which would be really fun. First of all, we'll start with plants and then we would move on to animals. Now, sexual reproduction in flowering plants is a topic. First thing, what happens in sexual reproduction, my dear children? What do you mean by sexual reproduction? Basically, here, two parents are being involved. There is parent 1 and there is parent 2. Parent 1 will be giving a gamete. Suppose parent 1 is male, so they will be giving male gamete, and over here parent 2 will be giving female gamete. Both of it comes together, and what do you get at the end? You get a single cell. It's not two cells coming together making two cells, no. Two cells come together to form one cell, and that cell's name is what? Zygote, my dear children. And this process, what do you call this process as? You call this process as fertilization. So in sexual reproduction, new individuals are found by the fusion of male and the female gametes, and this process of fusion of gametes is known as what, children? Fertilization. Now, sexual reproduction involves combining genetic materials from both the parents, which brings out variation. So what happens when sexual reproduction is happening? This gamete is nothing but a cell. This gamete is nothing but a cell having its own genetic material. Similarly, this gamete which you see, that is also a cell. That is also a cell. For example, this is sperm. It's a cell only. It will be having a nucleus, and the nucleus will also be having its own genetic material. So you see, two different genetic material are going to come together in something that is known as zygote. In something that is known as what? The zygote. So over here, don't you think variations are going to occur? Yeah, we would be kind of different from our parents. Why? Because both of their genetic material has combined now, bringing out new variety. Okay, it's not like a single parent has given just their DNA and this parent did not give their DNA. If it was like that, we would have been looking just like one particular parent, but we are not like that. We are kind of a mixture of both of our parents. So we are bringing about variation. In sexual reproduction, what do you see, children? You see variations. Now, genetic material is carried by the gametes or the germ cells, and they are the only cells that have half the amount of genetic material because of the process of meiosis. Now, there is one statement that is being said, okay, these cells that you see, they are the only cells in our body who have half the number of chromosomes. Okay, when you see about a normal cell, okay, for example, skin cell, a blood cell, whatever cell you take, okay, each and every one of them are going to have how many chromosomes, my dear children? How many chromosomes do you think they will have? They will have 46 number of chromosomes. They will have 46 number of chromosomes. That means there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so this is one pair, this is one pair, but how many chromosomes are there? This is one chromosome, this is two chromosomes. Just like that, you have 23 of them. You have 23 of them. That means in total, how many chromosomes individuals do you have? 46 of them do have. And now, the gametes, that is the sperms as well as the egg, how many chromosomes do they have? They have half the number of chromosomes. Suppose this is an ovum. The ovum will be just having 23 individual number of chromosomes. There is no pair and all. Individual number of chromosomes, how many are there? 23 are there. Similarly, in the case of sperm, how much do they have? They also have 23. Why do you think they have 23? Why is it getting halved over here? Children, you only imagine, if the ovum had 46, the sperm also had the sperm basically, if it also had 46, together when it comes, what do you get? You get 92 number of chromosomes in the zygote. That is not normal because all the cells of our body has 46 number of chromosomes. So this ovum and the sperm, if it carries half the number of chromosome, when they come together, how many do you have now? 46, and it's totally fine. So one pair, from one pair, one chromosome is coming from this side, the other chromosome of that particular pair would be coming from this side, and now they are going to make a new pair over here. Similarly, all of them would be paired, and how many pairs would you be having now? Again, 23 pairs will be there, and how many number of chromosomes? 46 number of chromosomes. But how do you get these cells? How do you get the gametes which have half the number of chromosomes? With the help of a process which is known as meiosis. With the help of a process which is known as meiosis, and please put your attention over here, meiosis is also known as reductional division. It is known as reductional division because what you are doing, you have 46 number of chromosomes, you are reducing it to 23 number of chromosomes. And also one more thing, meiosis is going to happen just in the gametic cells, or basically gametes, no other cells of our body. All the other cells of our body, when they are dividing, okay, when they divide, they give rise to two cells having 46 number of chromosomes. This is a normal division that happens, and this is known as mitosis. And mitosis is known as equational division. Why equational division? Because it's the equal amount of chromosomes. Over here it was 46, over here also it is 46. So this is equational division. But in the case of meiosis, you have to reduce, and that is happening only in the case of gametes. Now I'll be telling you one more very important thing. If you're not aware about how meiosis works, I'll tell you. So there will be a sperm mother cell, or basically the egg mother cell, oogonia or spermatogonia. It will be having 46 number of chromosomes, okay. It will undergo division which is known as meiosis 1. So meiosis happens in two stages. In meiosis 1, when it happens, it gives rise to two cells. Here only it will be half the number of chromosome. Now you might be thinking that basically if this was the mother cell, then these are the egg, or basically what? If this is a spermatogonia, it will be sperm. So oogonia, it's a ovum. No, it's not like that. Meiosis, I said, it happens in two stages. So there is one more stage required, that is meiosis 2. So over here, again, this will divide. This will also divide. You get two more cells. You might think it will get half again. No, children. We just wanted to make it 46 to 23. So it remains 23 only. So meiosis 2 is just like mitosis. In mitosis, you see equal number of things were there. Similarly, over here also, it will be equal number. So it is meiosis 2 only. It is a stage of meiosis. But anyways, at the end, you get 4 cells. So from mother cell, you are getting 4 cells. In the case of spermatogonia, one spermatogonia is giving rise to 4 sperms. But in the case of oogonia, what happens is that basically at the end, there will be only one functional ovum. All the other will degenerate. So that is an extra thing. You don't need to understand that. But at least remember this. Meiosis happens. Meiosis is a reductional division. It happens only in gametes. At the end, you get half the number of chromosomes. Okay? And this is done. This is done. Why? Why is it done? So that when the fusion happens, again, the zygote will have number of chromosomes just like all the other cells of our body. Okay? So when two such germ cells carrying half the amount of genetic material fuse, it re-establishes the amount of genetic material that the parents contain. In simple language, half plus half is equals to 1. Don't write this in exam. So basically, you get half, make it in 1, and 1 is something that all the cells of our body was actually having from the start. So this is what you mean by sexual reproduction. This is the basic idea. You should be remembering meiosis, reductional division is something very, very, very important. They ask in fill in the blanks questions also. So do not miss it. Now, certain important facts about sexual reproduction. What happens when gamete fuse? I told you zygote is going to form. What happens to the zygote, children? This zygote is just a single cell. The zygote is a single cell. This single cell will divide into 2. This will divide into 4, and then it goes on. It is going to form an embryo. Zygote is the one that is single celled. Later on, when it starts division, it's just now known as what? An embryo. Now, does the germ cells or gametes look the same? Do you think ovum and sperm look the same? Or in any case, do you think the gametes, they look the same? No, children, they are not the same. Usually, one of them will be storehouse of lots of nutrients. In our case, ovum is the storehouse of lots of nutrients, whereas the sperm has a motile structure so that it can move and come over here. It can move and come over here. Later when it comes, the initial nourishment is provided by the nutrients stored in the ovum. So, no, they appear different. Usually one of them reserve food and is non-motile and the other germ cells will be motile. Example is sperm of humans. Now, what if the gametes didn't have the number of chromosome of the genetic material? I told you if it didn't have, then you would be having double the amount of DNA and everything. That means double the amount of protein, which would be totally imbalanced that would be being created. If you want to read all those things, you can read it. If you want the if you want the PDF, you have to tell it to us, or else you can get it in the if you join the WhatsApp channel as well. The link of it is given in the description box. Now, how sexual reproduction brings variation, children? We discussed in the previous class. Basically, you have two different parents, so two different genetic material. Also, the parent is not going to give their own DNA. They are going to make a copy of it and send it. So, while they are making copy of it, the DNA replication process is not error-free process. There will be small errors being caused, which is why also you get variations. So, it is already known that new variations are made while errors during DNA copying, and also remember the DNA which is being copied already has variations accumulated from previous generation. Okay, so anyways, whatever variation we are having now while copying, okay, that is there. Before that also certain variations might have happened, so that is also there. This brings about a lots and lots of variation. Apart from that, two parents are involved, that is one big reason for it. Now, what are the male and the female reproductive part in the case of plant? And just give me a second, it's too hot up here now. Yes, I have. Okay, so this is the female part, okay, of the plant. This is known as carpel, my dear children. So, from here to here, this structure that you see, it is known as carpel, or you also call it as a pistil. In scientific terms, you call it as gynoecium. What do you call it? You call it as gynoecium. So, over here, this area that you see, okay, this area that you see, it is known as stigma, and stigma is sticky. Stigma is sticky so that the pollen grains can come and land on it. So, stigma, it is a sticky knob or head of the pistil that receives pollen grains and germinates pollen. So, pollen grains come and then later on forms the pollen tube. We will come on to that later on. Now, what is style, children? Style is something that extends from the stigma to the ovary. So, style is a pathway. Okay, and through here only the pollen grains which are going to land, they are going to make a tube. Okay, so style, it is a stalk in the pistil that supports the stigma and connects it to the ovary. It aids in fertilization as it allows pollen to grow a pollen tube to the ovary. Now, what is the ovary? Ovary is this enlarged region that you see over here, and ovary will be having the ovule. And what will the ovule have, children? The ovule will be having the female gamete. Listen to me very carefully. So, basically what is there? You have ovary, ovary has ovule, ovule will be having what? The female gamete. Ovule itself is not the female gamete, it is carrying the female gamete. So, ovule contains the female gamete, ovule itself isn't the female gamete. In future, this ovary becomes the fruit and ovule inside it becomes the seed. So, what happens? Suppose fertilization has taken place. Okay, the male and the female, they fuse. Now, inside the ovule, you get the zygote. Inside the ovule, you will be getting the zygote. This is the ovule, right? Ovule will become the seed. The ovary which is there, it becomes the fruit. So, ovule which is there, it becomes the seed, and the ovary which is there, it becomes the fruit, my dear children. Inside the seed, what do you have? You have the zygote, which is later forming the embryo, which is why we put down seed in the soil, because inside that there is a zygote which will be giving rise to the embryo and later a whole new plant over there. Cool? So, ovary becomes a fruit, ovule becomes a seed. Now, talking about the male reproductive part, this thing that you see from here to here, basically here to here, this is the male reproductive part. What do you call it? You call this as stamen, and you also call this as androecium. What do you call it, children? You call this as androecium. Now, it just has two parts. Okay, it just has two parts. What are those two parts? One is this lobed shaped structure that you see over here. What do you call it? You call this as anther. Okay, this is the anther. Now, anther has lots and lots of pollen grains in it. Okay, anther has lots and lots of pollen grains in it. And there is a stalk-like structure which you see over here. What do you call it? You call this as filament. So, you have anther which is like this. So, I can make a structure which looks like this. So, this is a bilobed structure. Okay, this is a bilobed structure you see at the top. This is the anther and this becomes your filament. Now, inside the anther, what do you have, children? Inside the anther, you have pollen grains. Okay, inside the pollen grains, what do you have, children? Inside the pollen grains, you would be having the male gametes. Remember again. So, there it was ovary, inside the ovary it was ovule, inside the ovule it was female gamete. Here it is anther, and inside the anther you have pollen grains, inside the pollen grains you have the male gamete. Pollen grain itself are not the male gamete, they carry the male gametes. Please remember that. So anther, it is a bilobed upper part of the stamen that contains the pollen grains, which in turn consist of the male gametes. Filament is what? It is a stalk-like structure that attaches to the anther to the flower. Now, pollen grains contains the male gametes. Pollen grain itself is not the male gamete. In future, these powdery pollen grains lands on the stigma. You saw it right now, right? It lands on the stigma and then it germinates later on. Now, over here, apart from that, you have petals. The color is bright colored thing is known as petals, and these green colory stuff which is known as sepals. What is the use of function of the sepals? So you might have seen before a flower comes, it is usually covered by a green colored thing. It gives protection, initial protection. So that is the use of sepal. So petals are what? They are multicolored and they are used to attract the pollinators, the bees and everything. They cannot see colors, but they with the help of certain radiation and stuff like that, they can understand certain things. Only if the flowers basically they have certain colors, certain specific colors. Okay. So all the petals together, what do you call it? Petals, all of them, if you take it together, what do you call it? You call it corolla. Okay. You call this structure as corolla. And if you take all the sepals together, you call it as calyx. So you have calyx and then you have corolla. Sepal is what? It acts as a protective layer when the flower is in the budding stage. The sepals together are known as calyx. Cool? Chalo. Next. Okay. So now we know that the flower contains stamen. Yeah. Stamen is also known as androecium. Pistil or carpel, which is also known as gynoecium. It also contains calyx, which is a group of sepals. It also contains corolla, which is group of petals. Now, here when a flower contains either carpel or a stamen and does not contain both, the flower is said to be unisexual. Okay, so that means if this is a flower and this flower basically is just containing this. This is what? The female part, that is the pistil. It is not containing the anther and all. What do you call this flower as? You call this as unisexual flower. You call this as unisexual flower. You can see this in papaya and watermelon. PW. Okay, I'm not promoting any other coaching center, but still. So it is papaya and watermelon, which you can remember for unisexual flowers. This is there in your book. This is not something that I am adding up. You have to remember it. Okay, unisexual flowers means there is only one sex in a flower. Now, on the other hand, if the flower contains both the carpel and the stamen, then it is said to be bisexual. So over here, along with this, if you have this also, what do you call it now? You would be calling it, this is what? Stamen. So you have both stamen and you have what? Pistil. So, on the other hand, if the flower contains both carpel and the stamen, then it is said to be bisexual. Example is what? Hibiscus and mustard. How do I remember it? H&M. H&M brand is there, no? So, that's how I remember it. Hibiscus and mustard. H&M is basically, they provide bisexual clothes. All the gender can wear it together. So, you can remember like that. So, hibiscus and mustard, they have bisexual flowers, and papaya and watermelon, they have unisexual flowers. Works? Cool? Now, going ahead, there is my remote. Yes. What do you mean by pollination? Since we understood the male and the female reproductive part, now it's time for pollination. What is the meaning of pollination, my dear children? Pollination means transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. That is what you mean by pollination. So, the process of transfer and deposition of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower is known as pollination. There are two types of pollination. One is self-pollination and the other one is cross-pollination. There are so many doubts lingering around it. I'll clear all of them over here itself. Listen to me very carefully. Okay. So, basically suppose. Arey, what is happening? Okay. This is a flower of a plant, okay, and this flower is bisexual flower because it has both of the sexes. Now, from here to here, in the same flower, the pollen grains are moving to the stigma. This is known as self-pollination. Self-pollination. Cool. Now, one more scenario I will tell, where something like this is happening. So, the flower is there. It also has the structures. This is in the same plant itself. Okay, this is in the same plant. Still, from the pollen to the stigma, it is coming and landing. On the same plant it is happening. Remember, it is happening in the same plant only. So, what do you call this as? you still call this as self-pollination. So self-pollination means the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or between the same flowers, or between different flowers in the same plant. I'll repeat it once more, listen to me carefully. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or between different flowers of the same plant. This is known as self-pollination, because anyway genetics is the same. Okay, whatever thing is there, all the cells of this particular plant, genetically it will be similar only, so I will call it self-pollination. Now, it is a process of what? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of either the same flower or another flower born on the same plant. Now, what do you mean by cross-pollination? Now, understanding cross-pollination becomes a lot more easy. You have a different plant altogether, and this different plant also has flowers which would be having same the pistil and the stamen. Now, from here it is going and landing over here. So you see two different plants are involved. This now is known as cross pollination. What do you call it? Cross pollination. So it is the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower born on a different plant, but it has to be of the same species. If it is of not same species, it won't be compatible. Okay, it won't be compatible. The fertilization would not be happening later on. Pollination is different from fertilization. Pollination means transfer of pollen grains. Fertilization means fusion of gametes. The gametes are still in the pollen grains. Don't make it fused as of now. So cross pollination requires the aid of an external agency. Over here, you might not require external agency as an external support. Okay, from here they are very close, so things can move. Okay, from here to here you might need a bee or a butterfly or whatever insect or a wind, something should be there. Okay, but usually we say self-pollination for this thing. Okay, we tend to forget this, but this is also a type of self-pollination. Please do not forget that. Now, for pollination to happen, you need external agents. Okay. Okay, and this can be abiotic or biotic things. Abiotic as in something that does not have life. For example, wind, water. So wind acts like a pollination agent. Okay, it will carry the pollen grains along, and then you have water. Okay, you have water. The plants in the water, they release their pollen grains on the water. The water moves around, and that's how they transfer it to the next plant. Okay, so and in the case of biotic factors, you have insects, you have birds, bats, snails, and lots of animals which come. So cross pollination brings about genetic recombination. Yes, cross pollination that you see over here, it will be bringing about diversity actually. Even though both of them are sexual reproduction only, but this will bring out diversity. Why? Here plant 1 and plant 2 is involved, parent 1 and parent B is involved. So over here you have two different genetic materials coming together. You have two different, even though the fertilization is happening here also. This is also sexual reproduction only, but this is happening within the same plant. But over here, two parents are involved. That means two different type of genetic material. So more amount of genetic variations would be seen over here in this case. That is in the case of cross pollination. And this would bring out variations. Variations will bring out adaptability, make the offsprings really capable of adapting to different situations. Now, what happens after pollination? Once pollination is being done, what happens? So in the plant, pollination is followed by something that is known as fertilization. And before making you read this, I want you to understand certain thing. I will be drawing it over here. I'll be drawing it over here and I'll explain you. Okay, listen to me very carefully. So this is the ovary. This is the stigma, this is the style. Inside the ovary, my dear children, what do you have? You have ovule. I explained in yesterday's class, but still, okay. Now, inside the ovule, after some division and everything takes place, there are certain cells. One cell is the egg cell, or basically you call it as the female gamete. It will have its own nucleus. Similarly, there are two cells surrounding the egg cells which are known as synergids. You don't need to remember the name. Please remember the number of cells that is there in the ovule. Okay. Now, after that, there are three cells over here. Again, they all have their own nucleus. What do you call these cells as? Antipodal cells. Okay, and there are two free nuclei over here, two free nuclei just lying over there. Okay, and it becomes a part of a cell which is known as, a central cell, and I call these two nuclei as the two polar nuclei. Okay, now this is a scenario within what? Within the ovule. So how many cells do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this whole thing is a cell. So 7 cells here there. How many nucleus is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nucleus is there. So 7 cells are there, 8 nucleus is there. The two polar nuclei is very important, and this is known as a central cell which carries it. Now listen to me. Over here there is an open region which you call as micropyle. Remember this. Okay, micropyle is the opening so that the pollen grains can come. Okay, micropyle is there. Now, the pollen grain came and landed over here. The pollen grain has 2 gametes. Children, how many gametes? 2 male gametes. One pollen grain, always remember, has 2 male gametes. Okay, now if everything goes on well over here, there is a chemical thing that is being released and everything happening over there, it can make a pollen tube like this. It can make a pollen tube like this, which goes via the synergids into the egg cell. It does not go directly. The synergids kind of help. Synergids are the friends of egg cell. They kind of help in going. Like you go, no problem. Okay. So the male gametes which are coming over there, they come down. So you have 2 of them. One male gamete will fuse with the egg cell. It will fuse with the egg cell. So what do you have, children? You have egg cell plus 1 male gamete. Here the female gamete and the male gamete are fusing. So what do you call this process as? You call this process as syngamy, or you call this process as fertilization. Cool. Now there is one more male gamete. What happens to that, children? That male gamete comes and fuses with the 2 polar nuclei which is over there. The 2 polar nuclei belongs to the central cell. So this 2 polar nuclei fuses with the second male gamete, and now you get something that has 3 nucleus together. Male gamete also has a nucleus. These 2 nucleus are also there. So you get something that has 3 nucleus. What do you call this process as? What do you call this process as? You call this as triple fusion, because 3 nuclei are coming and fusing together. So this is known as syngamy, this is known as fertilization, this is known as triple fusion. Now one very important thing, when the male and the female gamete fuse, what is the product of it? What is being formed? Zygote. So this is a main guy. This is anyway the main guy that is being formed. But what happens over here? What is being formed over here when the 2 polar nuclei fuses with the second male gamete? This forms something that is known as endosperm later on. Not immediately, but later on it will form something that is known as endosperm. Now ma'am, why is endosperm being formed? Children, the zygote is just a cell. It has to get nourishment to form an embryo. For that, who provides the nourishment? The endosperm basically is the one that will be providing the nourishment. Cool? The endosperm will provide the nourishment for the zygote to form what? To form an embryo, and the embryo later will form a whole plant. This is how things work. So basically, now when fertilization has happened, when the fusion and everything, zygote is being formed, what will I call this ovule as? I will call the ovule now as the fertilized ovule which is there. I would now call it as a seed. What will I call the ovary which is there? Ovary will now be the fruit. Cool? Okay. Now, how many, okay, so whenever you have double the number of chromosomes, just like in normal cell, you call this condition as 2n, that is diploid condition. You have double the amount of chromosome, it's all cool. Whenever you are going to make gametes, you have n, half the number of chromosome, 2n. If 2n is there, if I make half of it, what do you have? You have n. So basically, this female gamete has n, this male gamete has n, zygote, it will get n and n, becomes 2n over here. It's now diploid. Remember 23, 23, 46. Similarly over here they do not have 23, 23. They have something else. So I just wrote n and n becomes 2n. So this half number of n, what do you call it? This is known as diploid. N is known as haploid. So they are haploid in nature. Similarly over here, can you tell me what is a ploidy? What is a ploidy? This is known as ploidy. So one polar nuclei, this contains all of these cells, they are containing n. Okay, you might say that only female gamete should be n, no, but all the cells over here has n. Okay, so this is also n, this is also n, and the male gamete is also n. So n, n, n. You have 3n. What do you call this condition as? Triploid. So that is something different. Have the basic understanding of how things work. I will be explaining you. Take a screenshot right now because this will be going. This won't be there in the PDF because I just made it now. Okay? Cool. I hope you took the PDF. Now listen to me. In plants, pollination is followed by fertilization. Once the pollen grain is deposited on a suitable stigma, it gives rise to pollen tube, which grows chemotropically. What do you mean by chemotropically? On the basis of chemicals. So the ovule are releasing certain chemicals that come here, like that, through the style and reaches the ovary where the ovules are located. One male gamete fuses with the egg. The fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete is called fertilization, and it results in the formation of what, children? Zygote. The zygote divides repeatedly to form an embryo within the ovule. The ovule. Okay. So before this thing happens, before it forms an embryo, one more thing happens. The other male gamete fuses with the two polar nuclei to form an endosperm. This process is known as triple fusion and forms a triploid endosperm, to 3n number of endosperm, which nourishes the growing embryo. Now listen to me. Since 2-time fusion and everything is happening, once the male gamete fused with the female gamete, the next time the male gamete fused with the two polar nuclei, you say that there is double fertilization happening over here. Double fertilization means syngamy plus triple fusion. Syngamy plus triple fusion. That is what you mean by double fertilization. So over here you see I made it ulta. Okay, it can be like this also. So from the area where the pollen tube is basically getting inside, this area is known as micropyle. Please remember, the questions have come, I saw it. Okay. Now, inside the embryo sac, as fertilization occurs twice, it is known as double fertilization. Embryo sac, as in you're talking about inside the ovule. Okay. Now, inside the ovule, you have a structure that is known as embryo sac. I'm not going in detail, that's not there in your book. So, yeah. After fertilization, the ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into a seed. So, ovule becomes a seed, it has a tough coat. The ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Meanwhile, the petals, sepals, stamen, style and stigma may shrivel and fall off. Seed contains the future plant or embryo which develops into seedling under appropriate condition. This process is known as germination. Plume, it's not plume, it's plumule. Plumule develops into the shoot, whereas radicle develops into the root. So I told you, the seed is there, my dear children, inside the fruit. Okay, suppose this is an apple, green apple. In that you have seeds, right? You take the seed. Inside the seed, what is there? Inside the seed, you have the zygote. Okay, which is now forming the embryo. Now the embryo which is there inside the seed, it looks somewhat like this. Okay, so it will be having an area which will be giving rise to shoot later on, and it will be having an area which will be giving rise to the root later on. Okay, so this is the one. The thing that gives rise to the shoot, it is known as plumule. You were asked to label it. Okay, so this region is known as plumule, whereas this region is known as radicle, my dear children. The testa that is there, it is the covering of the seed. You have testa and tegmen, that is the covering of the seed. Now I told you initially you had endosperm to nourish the zygote. Initially you had the endosperm to nourish the zygote to form an embryo. But now during embryo formation, what happens when this transition has taken place? The embryo says, I do not need endosperm anymore. I will have my own storage thingy, but I will be making it from the endosperm, and that storage thingy is known as cotyledon. So each embryo will have cotyledons. So it can have one cotyledon, it can have two cotyledon. If it has two cotyledon, you call this a dicot. For example, you know chickpea and things like that. If you break it, you can break it into two parts. And if you put it in water, from between the two parts comes a new small seedling or plant, right? So these two parts which are there, it is there for providing nourishment so that this embryo can grow whenever it is needed. So these are cotyledons which are being formed with the help of endosperm only. Okay, and in between this embryo which is growing, it has plumule and the radicle. Now there are certain plants which just have one cotyledon. Example is your coconut. Coconut is known as monocot. What do you call it? Monocot. Monocotyledons, as in single cotyledon is there. Okay, so this thing that you see over here, it is the cotyledon. Okay, it is the cotyledon. Inside that you would be having the embryo as well. Inside that you would be having the embryo. Cool? Yes, and with this we have completed sexual reproduction in the case of plants, and now we are getting ahead with sexual reproduction in the case of organisms like human beings, my dear children. So are you ready for the battle? Let me just tie my hair and then we are going to get ready for the battle. So same thing in the case of males and females. In human beings also, you need sperms and egg for the fertilization to happen. So the same thing has to happen over here. But before that, there's a question. Is puberty and adolescence the same? What do you think? Have you hit your puberty, children? Okay. Are you adolescents now? Adolescents now, what do you say? So adolescence is basically a period. Okay. We say it's not the same. It's a transition period between childhood and adulthood. So adolescence is a transition period. Puberty is that time. Okay, is that particular time when a person attains sexual maturity. So adolescence is a period, in that period between what, childhood and adulthood, in between that period there's a time where you hit what, puberty. And puberty means basically now that particular organism is sexually mature. Okay, they will be starting to produce the gametes in their body. Okay, now one very important thing. So we all, when we hit puberty, we all have secondary sexual characters that is seen very new in our body, newly in our body. Okay, which was usually not there before we turned to be 11 or 12. Okay, it was not there. But now, since the time when we hit 11 or 12, the secondary sexual characters start showing up. So there are certain characters which come together, like both the females and the males have it. Okay, what are those characters? First thing, what are secondary sexual characters? Characters which are visible at the time of sexual maturation of the body. Okay, when you hit puberty. Now, secondary sexual characters common to both male and the female: thick hair growth in the pubic region and the armpits. In the armpits, until you were children, you didn't have hair. But now, slowly, you would be starting to have hair growth in the armpit region and also in the pubic region where your genitals are there. Okay, now thin hair will be starting to appear on the leg and the arm as well as on the face. So you will be having facial hair, both men and the women, and also you would be having thin hairs all over your body as well. Skin frequently becomes oily and there might be occurrence of acne also. You might have seen there's a period in everyone's life where everyone's face is full of acne. So this is when your sebaceous glands, everything becomes so active under the control of hormones. So which is why it happens. So totally fine, no problem. So these are the common things which are common to both male and female. I want you to study this. The questions comes, so you do not come. So you should not have to forget this. Now, there are certain secondary sexual characters which is just found in females. What are those? The breast size which is there, it begins to increase. So that is one particular thing, because this is sexual maturity, right? So often after some point of time, now the laws were created that you should be marrying at this point of time, you should be having kids after this particular point, after 18 years of age. But biologically our body is like that it can attain sexual maturity even though we do not have emotional maturity. Okay, so our body is ready to basically take down a child. So which is why the breast size, it increases. There is darkening of the skin of nipples and at the tips of the breast. Okay, which nipples which are there, around that there will be darkening of the skin. Menstruation will start to begin. What is menstruation? Basically the shedding of the endometrial lining. So inside the uterus, each and every month, okay, inside the uterus each and every month, a lining is being created, a spongy layer is being created, such that if fertilization has happened, if zygote is being formed, if the zygote turns to be an embryo, this embryo has to be nourished. So which is why every month in our body, a new layer is being formed. And when it understands no, fertilization has not happened, the layer sheds down, and this is known as menstruation or periods. Now, deposition of fat will be there in various parts of the body like thighs and the hips, okay, which is again listen, so this particular thing, when the thighs and the hips, there we find deposition of the fat and everything, this is again and help to carry the child and everything. So the pelvic region, it becomes broad so that the child which is there, if it comes, if at all it is there, okay, it has enough space to grow. So these are all are small things which are there. High pitched voice, this is again one particular thing. So these are the characteristics, secondary sexual characteristics in the case of females. Now in the case of males, males also have certain things. Thick hair growth on the face and the voice begins to crack and become deep. So you'd be having thick hair growth, the beard and the mustache and everything will come. Body becomes more muscular. Okay, enlargement of the testis, scrotum and the penis will also be seen over here. So these are the three things exclusively in the case of males. Again, remember all the secondary sexual characteristics, very important. Now, there are different phases of sexual reproduction, my dear children. There is pre-zygotic phase, as in before the zygotes are being formed. Before the zygotes, what do you need, children? You need gametes. So this is the phase where you have the gametes being formed. So sperm formation occurs during this, it is known as spermatogenesis. Okay. Ovum formation takes place, it is known as oogenesis. So all this thing has to happen in one phase. You don't have to remember the phases, this is just for your understanding. First thing, you need gametes to be formed. Second thing is zygotic phase. The zygote is formed where the fusion of male and the female gametes will happen. So it involves the fusion of the gametes, okay, which results in the formation of zygote. This process is known as fertilization or syngamy. Now post-zygotic phases when the zygote will be transforming into what? An embryo. So it includes events of growth and development of the embryo and the fetus from a single cell that is known as a zygote. Now starting with the male reproductive system, which is very interesting. Listen to me very carefully. Okay. Okay. So I will make like this and try to make you understand certain things. Okay. So basically, first thing first. Suppose this is the abdominal region. You know abdominal region. Okay. Below your stomach. So below that, males have two sac-like structures, okay, two sac-like structures which are known as scrotum. Now inside the scrotum lies one very important organ which is known as, not organ, yeah, testis. Why do you think it is outside the body? Why do you think it's outside the body? Because the testis is a place where two important things happens. One is hormone formation or hormone secretion, and the second thing is sperm formation. Testis is known as the primary, okay, it is known as the primary sex organ of the males. Did I actually do it? Oh my God, Jasmine. Okay, so there is a thing. If it goes, it does not come back. So basically, once more I have to make, just give me a small, sometime over here, this time probably I'll make, okay. This is what? This is scrotum. This is what? This is testis. And testis is there for two very important functions. What is this? Sperm formation and male hormone synthesis formation. Now, okay, which is why testis guy is known as the primary sex organ in the case of males. Okay, now the sperm formation basically requires 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius less, okay, degrees Celsius, 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than what? Than the body temperature, which is why it is outside the abdominal cavity within the scrotum. This is the reason. So the enzymes which makes the sperm, it needs 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lesser than the body temperature, which is why it is outside. Now the testis, if you see, okay, the testis, if you see, basically it has certain columns like this, okay, and inside that it will be some noodly thing which is known as seminiferous tubules. What do you call it? Seminiferous tubules, where the sperms and everything is being formed. Listen to me carefully. Here is the place, okay, inside the seminiferous tubules the sperms are being formed. Outside this extra space that you see over here, the extra space that you see over here, this is where the hormones are being produced. What are the hormones? What do you call them? Androgens. The male hormones are known as androgens. The most famous one among them is testosterone. So here the sperms are being made. Now sperms have to be transported sperms have to be transported. For that, for transporting the sperms, there are accessory ducts. What ducts? Accessory ducts. Now, when the sperms are getting transported, okay, so after some time they will feel hungry. The sperms, they want some nutrition and everything. For that, there are certain secretion from the glands. What do you call these glands as? Accessory glands. Now, after that, the sperm will be released with the help of the external genital organ. External genital organ, which in the case of male is what? Penis. Got it? So from here, the sperm is going out with the help of something that is known as rated testis. From rated testis, it will go out with the help of vasa efferentia. From vasa efferentia, it will go to something that is known as epididymis. Now it is outside the testis. From epididymis, things will be going to the urinary bladder with the help of something that is known as vas deferens, which is very, very important for you to learn. What is it, children? Vas deferens. So from here to here, all of them, they are accessory ducts only. They are going to transport things. Where is this duct going, my dear children? Where is this duct going? You take a screenshot and then I'll go ahead. The vas deferens, which is there, where is it going? Let's see that. So over here, the testis which is there, okay, you would be having your urinary bladder somewhere up over here. Oh, wait, just give me a second. The urinary bladder will be somewhere up over here. And this guy, like a shawl we put, no, just like that, it goes from the back and comes in the front. From here also you will be getting same. Where is one more testis, it will also give out its secretion, right? So when it comes down here, it gets a secretion from one particular gland, accessory gland. Until now it has accessory ducts which was carrying things. What do you call the last duct that you had over here? Vas deferens. Okay, now this gland, this is a gland that is there. You call this as seminal vesicle. I think it's given in your NCERT. This is seminal vesicle. So it gives the secretion. Here sperms were being carried. Now the sperms are getting secretion from what? Seminal vesicle. Hey, take some fructose, have some energy. So this is like that. Now, these both guys will be opening up together up over here, with the help of something that is known as ejaculatory duct. You don't need to learn this. I'm just trying to make you understand certain thing. Now listen, this is the urinary bladder. This thing that you see over here, this is the urinary bladder. Now urinary bladder, you know, what does it store, children? Urine. And urine moves out from the urinary bladder with the help of something that is known as what? Tell me. It is the urethra. The vas deferens which is coming over here, it is getting secretion from seminal vesicle, it is opening into the ejaculatory duct, then to the urethra. So over here, urethra, if you see, it's a common passage. It's a common passage between sperm and what, children? Between sperm and what? Urine. So urine also gets passed through this, and this also. This is a thing that is found in males. Now, one more thing, there is another gland over here. Okay, it's like a donut shaped gland from which, in between which this particular urinary bladder opens up. So this particular gland that you see over here, this is known as prostate gland. You see, prostate cancer and everything happens over here. So this is prostate gland which gives out another secretion to the sperm which is being released. Now, from here starts the next thing, which is the external genital organ, also known as the penis. From this is the external genital organ, also known as the penis. Here there is another gland. So there are 3 glands in total. 1, 2, 3. One is seminal vesicle, then is prostate, and then is Cowper's gland. Okay, you call it Cowper's gland, or you call it bulbourethral gland. Bulbourethral gland. Just have a memory of it. That works. It's totally fine. Just have a small memory of it. You don't need to learn it exactly. Okay, seminal vesicle is the first guy. Okay, it sees the sperm and says, take fructose, have some energy. Okay, and then comes prostate gland, which also say, take some calcium, also you might need it later on. And then Cowper's gland say, take some lubrication because you might need it for movement also. So it provides lubrication. Who provides lubrication? Cowper's gland. So we have seminal vesicle, we have prostate gland, we have Cowper's gland. 3 of these glands give out their secretion. Together, these secretions are known as seminal plasma. Very much important. Seminal plasma. Seminal plasma is what? Just the secretion of these glands. Now, who are they giving the secretion to, children? They are giving the secretions to sperm. So, sperm plus seminal plasma together, you call this as semen. What do you call this as? Semen. Okay, so semen contains both sperm and the seminal plasma. And who carries this? This is vas deferens who carries it. Got it? This is the basic thing. At the end, you have urethral thing that opens up for release. Okay, take a screenshot. Fine. Now, let's read it. So, it consists of a pair of testes that produces the male germ cells or sperms, and several secondary sex organs like duct system, accessory glands, and a mating organ. Testes is what? They are primary sex organs which are oval in shape, and are responsible for the formation of sperm and the male sex hormones, that is testosterone. The testes are located outside the abdominal cavity. They are actually found hanging in a pouch-like structure known as scrotum. The scrotum provides an optimal temperature for the formation of sperm, which is 2.5 degrees Celsius, 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, lower than the normal body temperature of the body. Now, secondary sex organs, all those things, as a ducts, glands and everything, they are secondary sex organs, okay? Help in reproduction, but does not help in production of gametes. So, these things do not help in production of gametes, they are going to help in reproduction by providing a transport, by providing some secretions and stuff like that. So, duct system is made up of epididymis and vas deferens and stuff like that. Accessory glands, remember the vas deferens, that is kind of important, okay? Accessory glands include a pair of seminal vesicle, prostate gland and a pair of Cowper's gland. They are in pair. Prostate is not in pair. Now, there is a mating organ which is known as penis as well. And with that, I want to introduce you to something, that is, if you are someone who is confused that what you should be doing after your 10th grade, my dear children, there is the scholastic aptitude test. You can freely take it and understand what you need to do in your future. And if you want to know more details, you have to stay until the end. I will be talking about it and I don't want to disturb you in between. But if you want the link, there's there in the description box. Cool? Chalo, let's talk about the female reproductive system. Kind of very interesting. So many questions have came around it. So please be very sure that you understood all the concepts over here. Understand all the concepts over here. My English has become disastrous. Okay, so over here, this thing that you see, my dear children, is the female reproductive system. And the thing about the female reproductive system is that it has very few cute parts. Let's see all of them. So, this is a very famous part which is known as uterus. Okay, and this is the most important part which is known as the ovary. Just like how you had primary sex organ in the case of male and which was testis, here ovary is the primary sex organ. Why do I call it primary sex organ? Because this is where female hormones are made. What are female hormones? Estrogen and progesterone, and also the female gamete is made. What is the female gamete, my dear children? Ovum, which is why it is known as the primary sex organ. Now, the ovary releases the ovum. There should be someone to carry it. There you had a duct system. Similarly, over here also you have a duct which is known as oviduct, which starts from here and goes up until this particular position. This is what? Oviduct. You also call it as fallopian tube. You also call it as fallopian tube. Now listen to me carefully. Over here, this region of the fallopian tube is known as infundibulum. Infundibulum. Okay? From here to here, you have ampulla. From here to here, you have isthmus. And this finger-like thingy which is there, this is a part of infundibulum only. You call this as fimbriae. So, basically, the fallopian tube is divided into 3 segments. One is this segment, infundibulum, then you have ampulla, then you have isthmus. Okay, so the ovum is carried with the help of fimbriae. It's like, come, let's go. and the ovum is carried and goes to the ampulla. It stays there. The ovum stays there. The sperm which is there, it has to get inside the female body. How does it get inside the female body? With the help of a structure which is known as the vagina. This is the vagina, my dear children. Through here, the sperms are being transported. How is sperm being transported over here? The male genital organ, that is the penis, is being inserted inside the vagina, which later on releases the sperm and it goes inside. The sperm has to go inside and go near the ampulla where the ovum will be there and fertilize it. That's when the zygote is being formed. But this is not an easy procedure. There should be millions of sperm being released, and all of them, at least a few, 1, 2, 3 of them should be reaching up there. It is a very, because it's a foreign thing that enters our body. Obviously, there will be so many cells to attack it, to kill it, and lot of things. Okay, now suppose, okay, the ovum and the sperm met there, fertilization happened. Okay, fertilization happened, you think like that. Now, zygote is being formed. This zygote will later form an embryo, and this embryo has to get nourishment to form a fetus. Who will provide the nourishment? So, the uterus is divided into 3 segments. The outer layer is known as perimetrium. Okay, then there is a muscular layer over here, which is known as myometrium. What do you call it? Myometrium. It is muscular layer. So, when the baby is formed, the baby tries to move out, right? It has to move out of the body as well, of the female body. Okay. So, at that point of time, the muscles have to contract. So, muscles of this particular layer, that is myometrium, it contracts. If you want to remember, I can write it, myometrium. But the most important layer is going to come now, and that is known as, I hope you can see it, this thing that I am going to form here. This is known as endometrium, my dear children. Endometrium, what happens is that endometrium has a basal layer which is always there. This basal layer helps in the formation of one more layer, which is a temporary layer. Every time an ovum is being released now, our uterus will be like, let's make this temporary layer up. What if fertilization has happened? So, every time this temporary layer is being formed, suppose fertilization has happened, okay, zygote is being formed over here. The zygote, I am making it in green. Zygote is being formed over here. The zygote will divide, it will form embryo. One stage of embryo, when it is almost like a few cell stages, okay, it is in blastocyst stage. There is a stage of embryo which is known as blastocyst. Comes over here, gets embedded over here, gets inside the endometrium, and this is known as implantation. This is known as implantation. Okay, gets embedded over here. Later, this endometrium itself provides nourishment and everything. Okay, later after few months, what happens is that, okay, this endometrium basically also helps in the formation of placenta. Not just endometrium, lot of other things. There will be embryonic tissues also which will be helping in the formation of placenta. So, initially who provides nourishment? Endometrium. Later who will provide nourishment? Placenta. So, that is the next process. But what if this thing have not happened? Has not taken place. The embryo formation has not taken place. Zygote is not being formed. What will happen? It waited, and then later it sheds off. This particular blood layer sheds off. This is known as periods, or what you call as menstruation. Now, one very important part I missed over here, the uterus, this particular region of the uterus, you have a specific name to it. You call this as cervix. You call this as cervix. So, you have oviducts, you have uterus, you have cervix, you have vagina, all becomes a part of the female reproductive system. Cool. Chalo. We have studied a lot of things here itself. So, ovaries are what? A pair of almond-shaped structures located in the lower part of the abdominal cavity. When a girl child is born, our ovaries contain thousands of immature eggs or follicles. So, usually in the case of males, no, the germ cell formation happens when they hit puberty. But in the case of females, they have it already being formed, but they are kind of immature. They start to mature when they hit puberty. Okay. Now, the secondary sex organs, accessory organs in the human female reproductive system are oviduct, fallopian tube, uterus, cervix and vagina. So, apart from ovaries, everyone acts as a secondary sex organ. Fallopian tube is what? Fallopian tube or oviducts are a pair of tube-like structure that lead from the ovaries to the uterus. The fertilization of the ovum by the sperm also occurs inside the fallopian tube. I showed you it occurs inside the ampulla region. Okay. Now, Uterus is what? The uterus is a hollow, pear-shaped elastic muscular organ which is specialized to retain and nourish the fetus during pregnancy. Vagina is what? Vagina is again a muscular distensible tube. It can be, it can change its shape. Okay, it's kind of elastic, not change its shape, it is kind of elastic, it's movable, leading to the outside of the body through an opening. Now, the uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix. Now, what if fertilization takes place, children? What if fertilization took place? That means zygote is being formed. If zygote is being formed, that means this particular zygote is now going to undergo division to form an embryo. I told you, the embryo keeps on dividing, and each cells which are being formed, no, you call them blastomeres. What do you call it? Blastomeres. Okay, so basically there are so many blastomeres being formed. Depending on the number of blastomeres and things like that, one stage of embryo is there, okay, which is known as blastocyst stage. This is when finally it reaches the uterus and get implanted into the endometrium lining, the lining which is known as endometrium lining. Okay, so what happens? The fertilized egg starts dividing and forming a ball of cells or embryo. The embryo is implanted in the lining of the uterus, where they continue to grow and develop organs to become fetus. What is this lining known as, children? This lining is endometrium lining. Please remember it. The questions have come so many times regarding placenta and things like that. You should be knowing about it. Now, after implantation, a special tissue called placenta develops between the uterine wall and the embryo. So, this is the uterus wall, and this will be the embryo which is there. In between them, there is something that is being formed, which is known as placenta. So, over here, from the embryo side, if I have the picture, I can show you. Oh, I don't have the picture. Where did I lose it? Okay, anyways, from the embryo side, no, there are finger-like projections like this. Please remember, from the embryo is just a group of cell and stuff like that. Okay, it looks like this. From this embryo side, they have finger-like projections being made, and these finger-like projections are known as chorionic villi. Chorionic villi. Now, chorionic villi is surrounded by blood-filled spaces. So, there are spaces over here which is filled by blood, children. It is kind of filled by blood. Okay, but this comes from the mother's side. This comes from the mother's side. What is this? Blood filled spaces. Where is the blood coming from? The blood is coming from the mother's side. So, there will be mother's blood vessels which would be opening up over here into the blood filled spaces. So, they are kind of filling the blood over here in the blood filled spaces. So, this whole structure that you see over here, this is known as placenta. So, placenta is formed both from the uterus side, that is from the mother's side, and also from the embryo side. Embryo is making what? Chorionic villi. This chorionic villi, if you see, okay, if I have to make it properly, okay, let's make it over here. If I have to make it properly, suppose, okay, suppose this is the, okay, this is the fetus. Oh my God. Sorry, forgive me. Okay, there's an umbilical cord, you know. There's a structure being formed over here. Okay, there's a structure being formed over here which has certain finger-like projections like this. Okay. Now, listen to me very carefully. Around it, there are blood-filled spaces like this also, which are receiving blood from the mother's blood vessels. So, from here, the blood is coming. Okay. And here, you will be having your blood vessels. You would be having different blood vessels over here. So, in the villi, you are basically passing down the blood vessels of the baby. And there is mother's blood over here. Mother's blood will be containing oxygen, everything. Okay. The oxygen is way too much over here. So, with the help of diffusion, the oxygen gets over here. The oxygen will be moving into the blood vessels over here. These blood vessels, where are they going? They are going back to the baby itself. They are going back to the baby. From the baby, what is coming? Baby is also giving out certain things, right? The baby's blood vessels will have lots of carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is given to the blood spaces. From the blood spaces, it will be going to the mother's blood, and the mother will be carrying it back. So, with the help of the mother, okay, with the help of these structure we form. What is this structure known as? This is what? Placenta. And placenta is not the finger-like projection that you see over here. It is not formed just with the help of the mother. The embryonic tissues, the blastocyst that was there, it was giving rise to the baby as well as the finger-like projections. So the baby, the embryo, not the baby, the embryo is contributing to what? To form the villi, which is increasing the surface area, so that maximum absorption, so the blood vessels can come, maximum absorption of things can take place. Okay, embryo is providing this. Mother's side, the uterus lining, and the this is being provided, the blood filled spaces is being provided from the mother's side. So placenta, as I say, is made with the help of both the mother as well as the embryo, and it is there for exchange of things. Okay, it's not just carbon dioxide which is being exchanged, the waste materials which are there, it is also being exchanged over here. The waste materials accumulate over here, then that is a problem. Now when the baby moves out, this umbilical cord that is there, it is being cut. Umbilical cord is being cut. Cool. Now over here, yes. So after the implantation, a special tissue that is known as placenta develops between the uterine wall and the embryo. The embryo gets nourishment from the mother's blood with the help of this special disc-shaped tissue which embeds in the uterine wall. The developing embryo will also generate waste substances which can be removed by transferring them into the mother's blood through the placenta. Now importance of placenta is always being asked, is a very famous question. So how do you answer it? Basically you say that it is helpful in exchange of gases like oxygen, which is very much needed. It helps in removing gases like carbon dioxide, and apart from that also the waste materials. It also helps in providing nourishment to the baby. 4 points. Okay, it is made both from the mother and the child. Now what happens when the egg is not fertilized? I told you, when the egg is not fertilized, the uterine line which is made up every time ovulation takes place, that is being shut down. So if the egg is not fertilized, the overgrown lining of the uterus breaks down. What is this known as? Endometrium. So you say that endometrium sheds down. That is the term that you use. It sheds down. Along with what? Unfertilized egg. The egg is also not fertilized, so that also falls down, and next time again one egg will be released, and the same thing repeats on. So through the vagina with the help with blood and mucus, as it is not needed any longer. This cycle occurs every month and is known as menstruation. It lasts for about 2 to 8 days, mostly 5 days, depends on person to person. Okay, please write, it is a very important question. Okay, endometrium sheds down. Okay, why? Because fertilization has not taken place. So along with the blood layer that is being formed, apart from the layer, what all things are being released? Unfertilized egg and the blood and the mucus also. Okay, so egg, sperm, zygote, single cell, multiplication and differentiation, as in all the cells will have different functions. That is what you mean differentiation. Now you form embryo. Embryo is multicellular. Embryo, implantation of the blastocyst in the endometrium and development. Now it becomes fetus, and the fetus lastly moves out of a body. Okay, blastocyst is a stage of embryonic development. You have different stages of embryonic development. Now comes the next question. What are STDs, my dear children? What do you mean by STDs? STDs means sexually transmitted diseases. So diseases that are spread from an infected person to a healthy person with the means of sexual contact is known as sexually transmitted diseases. And what do you mean by contraception? That is something different. Contraception is a method of birth control. You don't want babies, population is increasing way too much, so you have to stop basically not having sexual contact, but you should be starting to have what? Contraceptive methods, so that the birth control can be prevented. Okay, so these methods are devices of birth control, not prevented, it can be promoted. Okay, so yes, devices of birth control which deliberately prevents fertilization are known as comes under category of contraception. Now listen, there are different methods. Okay, they ask you directly, you have to write the methods. They ask you which is that method which also prevents sexually transmitted diseases. So sexually transmitted disease, I told you, it happens with the help of sexual contact. Okay, sexual contact means whenever the body fluids are being exchanged, that is sexual contact that is being happening over here. The body fluids are being exchanged, my dear children. So that has to be prevented. Then the sexually transmitted diseases would be prevented. So how can you prevent that? There's only one method that helps in prevention of STIs. One contraceptive method that contraceptive method is for preventing pregnancy, right? This method is the only one that prevents STIs also, sexually transmitted diseases also. Okay, not all the type of barrier thing, but at least one thing, that is condom. So condom comes under barrier method. What is the principle of barrier method? These are physical devices to prevent the entry of sperm in the female genital tract during copulation. They also protect against STDs. So there is condom that helps into the protection. What is the principle of barrier method? You physically, okay, there is a physical barrier that is being created for basically it prevents the meeting of the sperm and the egg. That's simple as that. It acts as a physical barrier that prevents the meeting of the sperm and the egg. Okay. Now over here there are different types. First is the condom. Okay, first is the condom. So there is the male genital organ onto which the condom is being placed, okay, on the top of it. So basically the sperm which is being released, it is being captured in the condom itself. Now how does it protect from the STIs? Suppose this is put inside the vagina, right? So now the vagina is protected from the secretions of the penis because there is a condom over here. Similarly, the vaginal secretions, they also do not go and affect the penis, which is why STI, there is no mixing of the body fluids happening over here, which is why condom is a method. Okay, condom is a contraceptive method which also prevents what? STDs. So only method, nothing else. In barrier there are a lot of other things, not everything protects. This is the female condom. This is a female condom. This is the male condom. This is the female condom. Female condom is being put in the cervix. The head of it is put in the cervix and later it is like this. So the penis is being inserted inside such that there is again no contact. But you have lot of other things such as this. This is diaphragm. Okay, this is diaphragm or cervical walls. Basically, you cover the cervix like this. So this is the cervix. Suppose this is cervix. There is a cup-like structure that covers it such that the sperm is being released over here, but it does not go inside the uterus. Does this prevent STDs? No. Here, the penis which is there, it gives out a secretion. It is coming in contact with the female part, and the female part is also coming in contact with the male part. So this is not a way. In your barrier method, there is one guy that prevents STDs, and that is condom. Always remember that. So barrier method is basically a physical device to prevent the entry of sperm as well as the entry of sperm into the female genital tract, or basically prevents the meeting of the sperm and the egg. Now, intrauterine devices, that is another contraceptive device. Intrauterine as in it is inserted inside the uterus. It is inserted inside the uterus. What happens over there? Okay, there are different types of intrauterine devices. Okay. Suppose this is the uterus. There is something that is known as copper T. So copper T has a layer of copper around this particular thing. It has a T-shaped structure. What does this copper do? For example, sperms entered. The copper inhibits the motility of the sperm. It does not allow the movement of the sperm very easily. Now, sperm is not moving. Can it go and meet the egg which is there in the fallopian tube? So this is an intrauterine device that is being put inside the female genital tract. Okay, but the problem with this is it sometimes causes irritation. The copper ions and everything that is being released, it causes irritation as well. Okay, now the next intrauterine device is hormone mediated. Okay, hormone releasing intrauterine devices. So what do? These things are being inserted and they release hormones, my dear children. So what hormones? The synthetic progesterone. So usually we need progesterone for fertilization, everything to happen. But over here this is synthetic. Synthetic as in this is not naturally made, this is man-made. And whenever a level of hormone it increases, it shows negative things. Usually what function it was doing the opposite now. It does not allow, it makes so many changes in the uterus such that the implantation does not take place. Even though the fertilization has taken place, the implantation would not be taking place. Or what it does is that the cervix which is there, it releases so much mucus over here such that there is a mucus plug being formed, such that the sperm would not be able to enter. So these are the things which is being done, but all these devices are being put inside the uterus. It's not devices and electronic devices. Okay, these are stuffs which is being put inside the uterus. One can be hormone releasing or it can be copper releasing, anything like that. So these devices are inserted by the doctors or an expert in the uterus through vagina. Example, copper T. IUDs increase phagocytosis of sperm. What do you mean by phagocytosis of sperm? Basically the sperms are being killed within the uterus, and Cu ions releases suppresses sperm motility and the fertilizing capacity of the sperm. The hormone releasing IUDs in addition make the uterus itself unsuitable for implantation and hostile to sperms like this, and insuitable for implantation. So this is a very important thing. IUDs, there are different types of IUD. Copper releasing IUD which affects the motility of the sperm. Okay, they kill the sperm also. And if we talk about hormone releasing IUD, basically they make the uterus itself very much unsuitable for implantation. So implantation would definitely not take place. Probably the endometrium layer which is there for providing nourishment, it is also not formed properly. That happens in the case, okay, of hormone releasing. Or probably the cervix which is there, it will have a mucus plug such that it makes the cervix hostile to sperm. Hostile to sperm as in the sperm cannot enter there. This is what you mean by that. So this is the role of IUD. But over here, if anyone is using this and they are having the sexual act, the body fluids are being mixed. So sexually transmitted diseases still can be transmitted. This is just a way of contraception. This is not doing a dual function over here. Okay, the baby would not be formed. So this is how copper T looks, my dear children. This is being inserted inside the uterus. Now, next thing, surgical method. Now that is a very interesting thing. Okay, surgical method is when, you know, your vas difference is there. The vas difference which was carrying the sperm, right? If you cut it, if you cut the vas difference and you tie it over there, what will happen? The sperm which was moving, it would not be able to move now. It would not be able to move around now. So this method where you're cutting the vas difference, you call it as vasectomy. What do you call it? You call this as vasectomy. Now, if you're cutting over here in the case of females who carry the ovum, it is the fallopian tube. If you're cutting the fallopian tube, you call it as tubectomy. You call this as tubectomy. So surgical intervention blocks gamete transport. That is the principle. It does not allow the transport of gametes. So first thing was meeting, you were preventing the meeting. Second thing, you were making the uterus unsuitable or basically cervix hostile, or you were doing something with the sperms. Okay. Anyways, fertilization or basically implantation was not happening there. In surgical method, you are preventing the transport itself. Okay. So, surgical intervention blocks the gamete transport and thereby prevent conception. Sterilization is also the name of the same thing, okay, because these people will be sterile. They won't be now be able to produce what? The babies. They won't be able to produce babies. It is an irreversible technique with low reversibility actually, but it is irreversible. Anyways, procedure in the male it is known as vasectomy, and in the female it is known as tubectomy. In vasectomy, a small part of the vas difference is being removed and then tied up through a small incision in the scrotum. So the small incision in the scrotum, this is being done. Scrotum, through that things are being taken and then being cut. Okay. Now, a small part of the fallopian tube is removed or tied up through a small incision in the abdomen through the vagina. That is done in tubectomy. Yes. Now, there is one more thing, that is oral pills. Oral pills are also being taken. Now, oral pills basically is again a combination of hormones. It can be progesterone or progesterone estrogen combination. So, these two hormones are being released by our ovary only, and this is very useful in the process of ovulation. Ovulation means the release of ovum. Okay, so ovum, basically the gamete which is there, it is inside a follicle and it has to be released like that. That is known as ovulation, and it happens because of hormones and stuff like that. But now you're messing up with the hormones. Okay, the normal level of hormones are being disturbed with the help of oral pills. So usually whatever functions they were doing, they are not going to do now. They are going to prevent what? Ovulation. They would not allow ovulation. Okay, they would not allow the development of egg. Okay, they would make the uterus unsuitable, and a lot of things happens over here. Similarly, you can remember like this, oral administration of small doses of either progesterone or progesterone estrogen combination are being put, okay, in the pills, which prevent development of egg and ovulation. Ovulation basically means release of egg. Cool. So this is oral pills. So 4 contraceptive methods you have studied. Apart from that, there is natural method also. Natural method means it works on the principle of avoiding chances of ovum and the sperm meeting. You are avoiding it naturally. There is nothing else that you are putting in your body. No. Periodic abstinence is the first one. Okay, periodic abstinence means, you know, your menstrual cycle, it is there for 28 days. Within the 28 days, the 14th day, the middle of the cycle is when the ovum is being released. It is when the ovum is being released. But there are chances for some females that it can be released on the 11th day or the 16th day also. So from day 10 to day 17 is very risky because ovum will be there. If sperm is also being there, then ovum and the sperm will fuse to form the zygote. So there's a risky period. It is known as fertile period. So do not have sexual contact during this period, and this is known as periodic abstinence. During a period, you are absent. Or basically there is no sexual contact happening during this particular period. This is a natural method. Second method, withdrawal or coitus interruptus. Withdrawal, this is usually taught in 12th, but I just taught you over here also. So withdrawal or coitus interruptus is basically where the penis is being withdrawn from the female reproductive tract before ejaculation takes place, before the release of sperm is being taken place. This is not a safe method, not be trying it. Okay, so why am I always stressing on these points as well? The thing is, you are in an age where you try to experiment a lot of things, and if you're not aware of a lot of things, you might end up at very bad situations. Which is why these things would be taught freely to children like you guys. You should be educating your friends as well, because you do not want anyone to catch any disease like that. So there are so many diseases which are being transported with the help of sexual contact, and if you're not aware of that, probably never ever try it as well. Okay, so that's all about the chapter. We have completed the chapter. Yip, hooray! Now, yes, there is one more very important thing. If you have any doubts, you have to ask me in the comment section. Okay, please feel very free to ask any sort of doubts, and tomorrow you will be having a PYQ session on this. Attend it, try to understand the concept, and then only go and attend the PYQ session. On Saturday, there will be a revision for this particular chapter. On Sunday, there will be a mock test for this particular chapter. Okay, and if you're someone who is confused about what you should be doing after your 10th grade, there is Diksha's Scholastic Aptitude Test, where children, you would be having a 60-minute concept-based lecture. After the lecture, okay, on the basis of the lecture, you will be having an aptitude test. Now, after the aptitude test, you would be having a one-on-one counseling session, and later on, the counselor will be telling what will the best stream that could be good for you. If you are interested in getting to know a lot more about it, the link is given in the description box. Click on that, okay? Or else you can ask me, I can help you, okay? And if you think that this particular video was useful, then definitely do not forget to put down a comment and also subscribe to our little channel, that is Diksha Karnataka, and also watch all the videos, very important. Bye bye, take care.